Welcome everyone to Dead Talk Live, and tonight we have Samantha Scaffidi with us from Terrifier. Samantha, thank you for being with us. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing good. It's always great to talk to a fellow New Yorker.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. How was Terrifier how you met Damien Leone and his crew, or did you know him before that?
I met him on Terrifier. I was recommended by Gina Caffarelli, who played one of the characters in the movie, and he recommended me for the role, and that's how I met Damien.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And what was your impression like when you first got to meet him and the production team?
Well, it was funny because I got the script, and I remember I auditioned, and he loved it. He offered me the role, and then the first intro was basically me going all the way out to Staten Island. And when I had arrived there, another actor was supposed to be there. And I remember just being like, oh my God, I'm going all the way out to Staten Island in the middle of nowhere. I haven't really been here that often. And I'm meeting a guy named Damien for like a movie and, a horror film. Um, and then all of a sudden I get a text from him outside, but I was waiting outside and he uh he was like the other actress didn't show up. So I was like, oh my goodness, here I am meeting Damien for the first time. I'm getting my head cast, which also was the first experience for myself. So it was a little stressful. And then he did the head cast. That was an experience. And yeah, after that, we had a conversation, and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy is unbelievable and awesome." So I
Yeah,
was
he's
completely
really he's really good at what he does. So the thing about Terrifier, and I mentioned this to Damien as well, that kind of threw me off, and I probably threw a lot of viewers off, was like we didn't think your character when we first saw you receiving the phone call that you were going to be anything but just a side character, but you ended up being the last girl standing, for lack of a better term.
yeah.
And we thought your sister in the movie was going to be, the one who takes down Art the Clown. Doesn't work out that way. What did you think about that twist in the plot?
I loved it. One thing I love about Damien is he doesn't follow anyone's rules. He kind of I feel like there are certain rules that I didn't understand prior to doing, a horror film or a genre film, specifically a slasher, that I feel like immediately when Tara gets shot, it kind of is just like we're not in the game that you're normal playing. It's like
Yeah.
Damien, he just kind of will take it in any direction, which I think is what's exciting because a lot of the audience never knows what's going to come, which is, I think, also why you get such a different experience when watching a Damon Leone film. So,
And
yeah,
when you were done shooting and looking back, how did you feel about the overall experience of shooting the movie?
I loved it. It's funny. It's terrifying to watch, but we had so much fun when we were, acting in the film when we were shooting it. It took the span of about a year to from start to finish.
Wow.
But I mean, I became such a close friend to Damien, and even getting to know Jenna and David, and even the producers and the crew. It was magical in a lot of ways.
It
It's
was.
I think that it was about 4 or 5 years ago, but
Now, I told this to Catherine as well that she suffered one of the worst on screen horrific deaths that I have ever seen in horror. Were you
yeah.
there in the background or just
Oh no.
watching her being tortured upside down? And
Oh no, 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 no. I mean, I think thankfully they did a very close set for that. But it's weird. Catherine and I never overlapped.
hmm
I think Catherine was shot out prior to me
arriving at the
starting
building.
filming. Yeah, and then Jenna and I on her last day was my first day, so Jenna and I had met, and then we just like I was like the remainder of the shoot. Yeah.
So, like you said, for the remainder of the shoot, it's pretty much all you carrying the rest of the film. And David. What was it like working with David?
David is I like that I'm able to say this now. David is one of the nicest, funniest, most talkative individuals, and I kind of always repeat that, which is shocking to I think a lot of fans or anyone who doesn't know David because his character doesn't say a word in the whole film, but also just
He's
because
the
he's
nicest person.
yeah, he's absolutely wonderful, but it's like the complete extreme opposite of what that role is. That's David. Yeah.
So take me back to your impressions when you first read that script. I mean, you're like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into here?
I've said this before. I remember I think it was like I consciously knew I knew I was reading a horror film, but I didn't like kind of make the connection while I was reading it. So as I was reading it, I was like so I don't want to say turned off, but I was horrified. And I was like, oh my God, this is extremely violent. Like, can I get behind this? Like, because I just wasn't making the connection that it was a genre,
Yeah.
a horror genre. And I even like, I joke with Damien, I was like, maybe I'll do this. I'll get some experience, meet some great people. No one will see it if it's, offensive or whatever. And then it ironically, went viral and had its life. But I at one point was like, should I do this? And I'm glad that was like a second
Yeah.
of that because it was life changing just in terms of process, but also just meeting everyone that I met.
Would you say Terrifier has been a career changing role for you?
I would say it is probably the most successful to date. Like, yeah, in terms of just reaching out to a fan base, I've had so much love and support from the Terrifier fans, which has kind of been a first experience for me.
Uh-huh.
So it definitely is a highlight and yeah, experience that I haven't really ever had. So
So, what are your impressions now of horror, having been in a very successful horror film? Have your thoughts changed on the genre at all?
well, I always loved horror. I was like,
Okay.
I definitely grew up. I love film in general, but like, I always wanted, if I wanted to scare myself or, just go on a ride, horror was obviously always the film that I would watch. And I do have to say, they're some of the best to ever film. They're the most fun to film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would do them 10 times over, and and whenever Damien calls in a heartbeat, I would do it. But yeah, I guess if anything, it's changed. It's just it's taken the fear of maybe watching a new horror film because you kind of know how it all works a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it changed. But I've always loved the genre. I just and I always respected the genre. I
Yeah.
just
So, when did you get the call that you were coming back for Terrifier 2?
the I kind of always knew. Damien is always thinking ahead and always, I think that's what makes him amazing is he could be in it and filming, but his mind's always working and he has such a vision, I think for the series, but also just in general. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of knew when we were filming because I knew the outcome that, if and when they did the sequel, that there would be some sort of way that I was weaved into it.
Now, obviously, you can't share about Terrifier 2, but if you were to compare the two experiences in the same franchise, which one would you say was more grueling on you, both as an actress, physically, emotionally, mentally? Is it the second one that's still yet to come out, or was it the first one?
I'm going to be very careful with answering that.
Yes.
I'm not going to say what I spent more time
I'm
doing.
pretty sure Damien is watching this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He said he was going to try to try to catch a little bit. I would say because I was working with people that I was very familiar with and loved dearly, that it was a lot more fun. I was a lot older, a lot more mature, in my craft. So we had a lot of fun in the second one. We had definitely there. It felt like I think in the first one, I there's always those nerves
Hmm.
being new and coming into something, especially as a young actor, and then but I didn't have that at all in the second one, but
Oh
also because
yeah,
I felt like I was a family.
you know, you
That's my
know,
very diplomatic answer.
yes, and you know the crew. You've worked together. It's like a family reunion in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll get back to Terrifier in a bit. Tell us about yourself. Like how did you get into acting? When did you know, and all that good stuff.
Oof. Yeah, it was weird. I grew up, I don't have any family in the arts in terms of like a profession. I'm like the Marissa Tomei of lawyers. You know, like
Yeah,
my father's a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer, my other brother's a lawyer. It's
yeah,
like the whole
yeah. My
family.
cousin Vinny right there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I always had an interest, and I can't tell you where it came from when I was a kid, but I did a theater program in the summer. It was a Stage Door Manor when I was 13, and that kind of was like the first, you know, thing that lit me up. And
Hmm.
then I went to business school because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I took like a side acting class, and then it just kept the interest kept, I guess, it just kept getting pulled out of me.
Hmm.
And then I graduated business school. I ended up in New York City, and I pleaded with my parents to just like give me one summer where I could, train a summer program, and they were supportive. So I did the summer program at William Esper Studio. And then that kind of just changed my life. Like I remember coming out of that programming, having experienced something I had never experienced when you act, which is like this full body, just yeah, I can't even describe the feeling, but my father had seen it in me and seen the shift. So he
Hmm.
said, I see you've changed. I see you love it. So if you're gonna do it, you got to do it, and you got to pursue it fully. And to
Exactly.
do that, you have to have a foundation. And so he supported me because my parents are, they both supported my mother and my father. They sent me to acting school for 2 years.
That's so great to have such
Yeah.
supporting parents.
I mean, I hope to give them everything that I can. First, I hope to, not ever disappoint them. But second, I hope to pay it back tenfold. But yeah, so I did that for 2 years, and then just for the next, I think, 10 years, because that was 2012, I graduated. Yeah, I just was acting, producing to act, and
You did a lot of shorts and whatnot. Was Terrifier your first feature film or second?
it's weird. I've done a lot of independent features, and like if I look at my resume of all the things I had done, there was a lot that didn't make IMDb, or some never saw kind of the light of day,
Hmm.
or I had like bit roles in features. Terrifier was like one of the larger roles that I had ever done. Yeah.
And so, along with Damien, I mean, you guys are done shooting the first one. And, I mean, Terrifier has developed a big following now. You
Yeah.
should have seen, I know you were not able to make the convention in Atlantic City earlier this
Yeah.
month. You should have
Yeah.
seen the line of people for David. And
I
Damien is all there, staring at the ceiling. And David has a line across the whole room of people waiting to get his autograph.
I remember when it went like viral. David's like numbers like went from zero to like I don't even know, like
Yeah.
instantly. It was like, but it's actually really refreshing though, because a lot of these people prior to Terrifier, they work so hard, and they really are passionate about what they do. So to like get that kind of response and support is just, it's actually, and they're so humble about it all.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I've heard Damien sent me videos because they're traveling like the country all the
Yeah,
time.
it's a great crew.
Yeah. But they show me videos, and it's just like just hundreds of people. I'm just in shock.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I remember, while David had the line, I go to Damien and I forgot what I was saying, but I'm like, what about Mr. Popular over there referring to.
I hope Damien's watching right now.
Oh, man. So when did you know after the movie came out, you and the rest of the cast crew, that, you guys made something really special here?
I think it was when Dead Central got involved, and then it went on Netflix. I knew when we had seen it. The truth is when you do like an independent film and you don't have a lot of money, I think as an actor, especially when you have like not even like a six-person crew, you're like,
Yeah.
what is this gonna be? It's like and you don't even know what the director's doing necessarily. And I didn't at that time. And so you're like, is this just gonna be coverage? Like, is it just gonna be very simple, like back and forth? But then we saw it and oh, I remember this is going back. We did I saw it at the premiere at the horror festival in Lincoln Center with the cast and crew.
Awesome.
Yeah, and family and friends. But that's when I was like, Damien, that's what you were doing the whole time. Like everything was just so there was such a vision from beginning to end, and just from how he plotted out like just the shot design. Even like like what he does is so difficult, right? It's like it's comedy and it's horror, and it's like he builds these moment to moment, second to second like scenes that really just make you jump. That's not an easy feat.
No, no, it's not.
So I think as an actor, I was like, oh. But then you can see that and appreciate it, but then you never know if it hits. And then I think when it went to Netflix and we had support, that was when it was like trending, and we were like, what the hell?
Now, working with Damien as an actress and him, directing something that he created and wrote and all that, how did you find his direction in what he wanted you to do? Was he very clear? Did it give you some leeway in how you wanted to portray the character?
In terms of portraying Victoria, there was complete trust in taking it in the direction that we took it. Damien is the kind of director that's like once he gives you and entrusts the role with you, he kind of entrusts the role and lets you take it character wise. But he does know what he wants. So even being there on set and when you're on set and you're doing these takes, you're not necessarily seeing what you're doing, and he knows what he wants, and he'll be able to get you there because he's also seeing it, how it all comes together.
Exactly. Now,
Yeah.
as a fan, what do you think about the gore aspect in the movie? I mean, it's really over the top, and Damien got
Yeah.
really innovative.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. Slasher gore is not. I want to say I'm a little bitch. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse right
No,
now.
you're allowed.
Okay, I'm a little bitch. I don't. I'm like I have to like. I don't think I've ever seen the movie fully. Like I've been like this the majority of the time. My horror type of films that I like to watch are like the psychological horror things. But
Yeah.
Damien definitely took it, and he pushes the envelope. And I think, yeah. I mean, like I said, I haven't. I'll look away at certain moments, but I know there's an audience for that, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I know I do know that he definitely he keeps pushing it in the sequel. So
For me, I like them both. There's always a place for the gore and all that, but I'm like with you too. I love character-driven, good psychological thriller slash horror movies.
yeah,
They both have a place, and they both fall under the same umbrella of horror. At
yeah.
the end of the day, uh, now it's a popular film. It resonated with audiences. Did you do anything to sort of like, did you sneak into theaters? Do you see what the audience's responses was, how it was being received by people?
I didn't. I feel like Damien definitely kept me up on like because I think they were playing it at a few drive-ins, which is really cool.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned
I
that.
would, but I wouldn't. We didn't even. It was weird. I don't even know if we knew about it until like it was happening type of situation. So he'd send like a little update, but yeah, no, I think I don't even know if it. I mean, it was in a few drive-ins. I know it was playing in bars in New York City. Like people were screening it in bars, but it was one of the things where we heard about it later.
Yeah,
Type of situation. I think it went almost not straight to. Did it go straight to Netflix or the streaming services? But
I know once it was definitely on streaming. So I purchased it. It was so
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
is available on Netflix, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched any 80s horror movies? Like, now I asked Damien about this and how the film, if he purposely did it, he gave it sort of that 80s. This is all done in the editing process,
Yeah.
that grain and all that.
Yeah.
Watching the film, what did you think about that as a viewer on how he took it back to sort of the old school days?
I love it because I think one thing Damien's always been transparent about is he loves the genre. Like no one knows the genre, I feel like, better than Damien.
Hmm.
But he a lot of it are homages to some of the people that he admires and respects, you know? So I think there's just even just in terms of, genre technique, you know, which he could explain all that in the
Yeah.
horror genre specifically. But yeah, yeah, I love it. I mean, as a filmmaker myself, because I'm now directing, it's hard not to incorporate that
Exactly.
into your filmmaking. Yeah,
Now
because I
you,
mean it's been yeah.
so now you said you're directing as well. What kind of stuff, do you like to direct as far as genre type material? Is it anything that appeals to you?
It's funny. I tend to feel like I write dramatic things, but because I'm a writer as well, so I write the material that I direct. But unless I'm hired for a job, but it's whatever comes out. Like I weirdly wrote that I actually consulted Damien on like a horror, a psychological horror.
Mm-hmm.
It's oddly enough that's what came out of me when I wrote the story. But then I've also, written absurdist comedies and dramatic pieces. So it's weird. I'm as much as I'm not I can't really look at gore. A lot of material that I tend to write is on the darker side. So maybe that's why I had a lot of fun shooting
There you go. There
horror
you
films.
go. Your
Yeah.
subconscious reveals itself, you
Oh
know?
yeah, no, there's a shadow. It's there. It's and it comes out in my writing.
Now,
But
you said you've done producing, directing, you like to write. Moving forward, do you want to continue doing everything as well as acting, a little bit of everything?
well, it's funny. I want to do it all, but I always thought that acting was kind of the end all be all. And then directing kind of happened in a very unexpected way. And that became a clear, more realistic path, which sounds kind of ironic because
Mm,
I feel like it's just as hard as.
yeah.
But I got very lucky, and I have representation, so I'm very focused on writing, directing. But then I'll get auditions when they come in, or if with Terrifier, or if people
Exactly.
that if I've worked with, reach out to me.
Now
But
being now being a jack of all trades, acting and behind the camera, what would you say personally is the most challenging? Is it acting? Is it directing, writing? For me, I would think it would be writing. It's the whole creative, just coming up with something out of nothing.
yeah, it's weird. It's like they're all difficult for different reasons, right? It's like acting. You have to be able to do the work and lose yourself in the moment and share a part of yourself and your truth and be vulnerable, and that's a difficult place to go. That's hard to just turn on,
Yeah.
that takes a lot of you know guts and whatnot. But and then directing is there's so many aspects of directing that you have to be able to do at once. So it's being able to direct actors and it's being able to drive a set, and be technical with your shot design. It's
Yeah.
and then writing always was something that was always happening in my life where I didn't realize I was a writer. I was just kind of always writing. And
Hmm.
then one day I looked down and I had all these scripts. The hardest thing I would say writing may be the hardest to do because I didn't go to school for it. So I creatively it's easy for me to kind of go into a story, but the craft of it is really difficult. like making sure that you're telling a story, but that also it's, the audience can follow from
Exactly.
beginning to yeah. So it
Now,
is challenging for all different reasons. Yeah.
now, when to get into the character of Victoria, did you do anything special to get into, Victoria's mindset? Like, oh my God, I gotta go pick up my sister and her friend. And lo and
Yeah.
behold, here I run into this psychopath maniac who's chopping people in half.
Yeah. I wish I had cool stories about doing weird things, but I feel like Victoria was very like close to the vest. Like when I grew up, I used to be, I mean, like, look, everyone underage drinks, at some
Yeah.
point in high school, and I was always like paranoid, so I would always be the designated driver. So I was always picking people up, and I was always driving them home. So like, it's just like Victoria was very much like my own self, like kind of like, oh, I've got a million things to do, but okay, I'll come to you at 2 a.m. in the morning and take care of you. So,
Exactly.
but in terms of like the hardest things were, acting and like coming upon a body, you know, like I think she comes upon Catherine's body and Jenna's body. It's like
Yeah.
one sister. What is that, and how do you prepare for that? And
How do you react to seeing your sister's dead body?
yeah,
It's
I think
like,
there's the idea of what that is, and then there's the reality. And thank God and knock on wood, I've never had to experience anything like that in my life. But it's challenging. It's I
yeah.
don't yeah, it definitely was challenging.
I,
But
I gotta share this with you. I'm looking at the chats because they're right there. Everybody loves your voice.
oh, wait, I'm gonna share this with my father because my
Yeah,
father
you
always
do,
like
and I admit you have like that. I guess closest comparison is Demi Moore
uh,
type of voice. So
I I will take it because I my dad would always joke. My dad and I take the piss out of each other, but he'd always be like, just a little bit higher, just a little bit,
no, no,
But then
keep
I
it.
went to acting school and everyone was like,
Don't
you have a
change a
voice.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. Little
Now,
shit.
I don't remember you sounding like that in Terrifier. What do you do? Tell us, like, what do actors do to change their voice? Not talking like I'm talking, like in a British accent, but
Yeah.
from American to American to sort of mask your natural voice. Give us the trick. What do you do to mask it if you have to?
I feel like probably at okay, what is that, like 2016? I did a lot of growing up, so my voice, I think, changed a bit, if grounded it a bit in myself, so maybe that's the shift. But I think I was screaming a lot in that film. Or like screaming to nowhere, Tara and all
Exactly.
these things. So that's probably why it went up. But no, I mean, I think when you have time, I went to acting school and we did voice and speech classes. We worked on accents. Yeah, we learned to find the right voice for the character. But I tend to try to ground it in myself because I think one of the things that I at least feel in acting is that it's really hard to lose yourself fully in a role. There's always a part that you're trying to align the role to
Hmm.
you. You know what I mean? To find the truth of it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I really haven't been tested in that way in an acting role yet, where I really have to, make my voice a little bit higher or even lower, or even.
Well, let me give you what I think. I think your voice is well, besides your acting and so on, is going to be a big asset for you
Yeah.
moving forward.
I'm like, wait, any voiceover agents on this chat? Because
I hope so. I hope so. Now, like you said, you take over the second half of this movie. The all the cast that we met in the beginning is dead. You're carrying this film. Did you feel added pressure having to do that?
I don't think I really consciously thought of that actually, because I think in my mind yeah, I just was seeing it as a whole piece, as an ensemble, and David. David really like he carries that whole movie in a lot of ways. I mean, all the acting is great and every individual is great, but him through it is really he just steals like all the scenes. But yeah, no, I didn't feel the pressure because I don't think I thought about it. I just we were really in it, and I think like I had said, it was a low budget, small crew, and we were just kind of just showing up and giving everything we had, and kind of got lost in that world for a bit.
Did you find yourself, coming to Damien with a lot of questions when it came to your interactions with Art the Clown, with Victoria's interactions with Art the Clown, and what exactly Damien was looking for?
Yeah, I think we had initial conversations where we kind of like solidified what the intention was. We exchanged like some references, but I think when we were on set, we just got to work. Like I said, Damien has such a clear vision that, if the take goes, we'll stop. He'll give you a direction, and boom, we do it again. And I like to work like that because he kind of tells you exactly what it is he's looking, and I like, and there's, and then we just go in and we do it again.
Yeah. Give me
Yeah.
your first reaction when you saw David in full makeup.
I don't think I met David in full makeup. A few people met David in full makeup. I or only knew him in full makeup until like the premiere. I mean, it was kind of just like weird because you meet this person who's really and then their face is just it. But the fun of it all was, David in full makeup, still being David.
Oh God, I can imagine that.
Yeah, like we have so many videos, and I don't know where they went, but Damien was like, "Do not share these until the film comes out, or may never share these." But they're just like absurd and ridiculous. Him on the little bike. Us just being absurd, trying to entertain ourselves in between takes. So,
So let's talk about some of the other stuff that you have done. Like for example, Demon Hole. Okay, not as well received as
yeah,
Terrifier.
yeah.
Okay, but how did you get involved with that?
That was an audition that came in through a manager, and I auditioned and I got the role. We shot it. I was very young at the time, early 20s, and we went out to Ohio. Same kind of scenario, like small budget, very small crew, but we shot it like in the dead of winter in Ohio, in like the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
And it was just so, it was like, it felt like another family and a magical experience because I love the director, I love the cast and the crew. And we got to like, be in that environment for a month and away from the world. But yeah, those winters were grueling because we were out. A lot of it happens outside, which is the irony of it all. But yeah, yeah, I've been very lucky that most films that I've been on, I've just been able to work with really good people. So
Now, Demon Hole, did you? I'm just looking at your resume here. Demon Hole, you did after or before?
way
Before.
before, yeah.
Now, your roles after Terrifier, uh, you know, it sort of went up. You were in a TV series, How to Be a Startup in 21 Days.
Yeah.
Uh, Not a lot of TV work, but the stuff that you have done for TV, what are your impressions working for a TV series as opposed to doing a film?
Um, I'm not. I think even How to Do a Startup was like I think it says TV series, but I think it was like a web series. I don't know if
Okay.
they ended up putting it out. I mean, it's funny. Right when I would say I shifted careers very drastically 2.5, 3 years ago when
Mm-hmm.
I started directing. So that's probably why there's also a possibility that I would have not landed in many roles after, even if I didn't shift careers, because the life of acting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really don't know. I've never really been on a TV show, but I've heard experiences through a lot of my really close friends. But yeah, I hope to direct the TV episode one day.
Now, as when it comes to your directing work, you do, at least as far as IMDb goes, you've done a lot of shorts.
Yeah,
Have you done any other stuff that has not been released or has not is not going to be released yet? Or
yeah. Well, I can explain that because it's an interesting shift in career. So I was making films by myself. You know, I went to the Women's March on Washington and I made a doc on that. And then I made a domestic violence PSA. You know, and then I made a music video for a band and up until that point, I was just kind of like having these ideas, writing these things and saying, I just want to I just want to make this thing. I wasn't identifying as a writer director. But then, ironically enough, the music video caught the attention of a very, very big commercial production company. So they called me in, and then I spent the better part of a year being developed by a commercial company. So so a lot of the things I do are short form because they're music videos, they're PSAs. I've worked with like Rain, which is it's rape, abuse, incest national network.
hmm
So I've made short films for them. A lot of the work I've done is in like the social justice sector.
yeah,
Yeah, and then when that was like right before, you know, it got one of the films did very well in that world, and then you know, as my career was about to go up, the pandemic kind of hit, and then the industry shut down.
exactly. So,
Yeah,
do you find yourself like when you're acting and you're working with these different directors like Damien and other people, are you watching and also learning how they do their thing and uh, picking up on what you would like to try out as a director yourself?
I think when I've worked with directors, and I think like when you're on a set as an actor, even if you're focused on the acting craft, you're just in the environment, just picking up all these things, even if you're not aware.
Yeah.
And I definitely I learned a lot from being on set, whether I was an actor or as a producer, of what to do and what not to do. And more times than not, sometimes what not to do. Um, but I think with like directing, you know, it's just I've always been a film lover. You know, I've my whole life, and I think that's also been my school because I ironically never went to school for any of this besides acting for those 2 years. And I think, yeah, just that, and I love visual essays on, you know, film essays where they're
Yeah.
like, you know, Aronofsky sounds or Edgar Wright, what's it? He does the visual comedy, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I like, I'm like a nerd in that sense. Like I devour that. So, and then I think with all that, when I direct, it becomes very instinctual. So,
And when it comes to being behind the camera or part of the crew, I would think there is no close anything that matches just on-set experience. As you know, school is important, school is great, it gives you
yeah.
the fundamentals, but just being on a set, seeing how things are run, how things are done, that can't be matched anywhere else. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. I joke that like my crash course in producing was uh trying. We made a feature film, and that was my first experience ever producing. That film I don't think ever came out for just I think other reasons that I'm not too sure of, but like it was like every mistake you could make, we did. But because it was us making it, we, you know, didn't have to worry about, having to answer to anyone,
Yeah,
which is also what I loved about making my own films. Because, I mean, you learn by failing. So
yeah,
the greatest lessons I've ever learned is by just doing. And that's always been kind of what's kept me going is like, you know, I would do acting roles and early in my career and just absolutely suck. Like just be like, that was shit. And then, but you know, work always begot work. And then I started realizing like, just got to go out and do it and pursue the passion and whatever and yeah, so like for me, everything that I've ever learned in this kind of world has been just by doing, and I guess it's the exciting part of it.
It
But
is. It is. Now, Terrifier 2, when it does come out, whenever that is, do you feel there's a little bit extra anxiety as opposed to the first one? Because now the first one was so successful and people are expecting the follow up to be as successful. For you personally, you can't answer for anybody else,
yeah,
but are you a little bit more nervous with Terrifier 2 coming out as opposed to Terrifier?
I'm actually not because I think well, I actually had this conversation with Damien just because he was encouraging me on something, but
By
me
the
and
way,
Damien,
he is watching.
of course, he is. Hi, Damien. I love you. No, well, I'm going to tell him about the conversation we had on the phone. We both have that same mentality where it's like you can't write and make films for an outcome. You kind of just gotta trust your instinct and trust, and just and own that. And I think like look, you can do everything that you desire in a film. You can get all the money in the world and people can read the script and love it, but it may not land. And that's
Yeah,
the reality of any art. It may not be received for whatever reason, whether it's the time or it didn't translate, because it's really hard to have an idea like we had talked about with writing, where it comes out of nowhere, it comes out of nothing, and all of a sudden you have that and you see it to the end. It may not translate.
yeah.
And I think that's the reality of like any artist, not just filmmaking. And so I think, and I mean, maybe I'm speaking for Damien or and myself, but I think we both understand that, we know that. So I think that's what drives us to just be like, fuck it. We're going to put
Exactly.
everything we have into this. We're not going to worry about appealing to this person or this thing and just like make the film that we'd want to watch. And
And I've talked to a lot of filmmakers, and they all have the same thing to say. It's not about how well it's received, is are you happy with it? You know what I
exactly.
mean? Are you happy with what you put out there? How do you feel about that?
I totally agree. I think that's the hardest thing, right? Is to do that without taking into consideration all these other factors. But at the end of the day, you've got to be proud about the work that you do, and you got to be able to stand behind it.
Hmm.
And I mean, look, we do make films for them to be watched. We want the audience to be entertained. And I know for sure, like, the fan base of Terrifier is so loved by all the cast and crew. Like, and I know Damien especially. So there is nothing more than what we want than to like make the fans happy,
Yeah.
to give them another experience, better than the first. But in terms of staying in that state of anxiety, you really it's not useful. We just got to just do the work and hope for the best type of situation.
Now, did shooting Terrifier 2, was it a longer shoot than Terrifier? I
Um,
think that's allowed, right, Damien? I mean, she can say how long.
I'm like, oh, I saw Damien said hello. I'll love you back. Yeah, Damien, can I answer that?
Damien, could she answer how long did
Well,
this?
actually, we had so many days on Terrifier 1, so I can say it was shorter.
Okay.
But we had a lot of days, and we had a lot of pickup days. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
But I'm
could,
gonna be very careful what I say.
yeah. The boss man is watching.
Oh, you can
He
answer anything
says,
you like.
answer
Okay, Dave.
anything you like. So there you go. Samantha, this has been brilliant. We got to bring you back when Terrifier 2 does come out. There are a lot of people anticipating this film, and I see a lot of great things in your future as well, in your career, whether it's acting, directing. I'm really, really stoked to see more of your directing work. And
I'm excited to share it with the world. Hope soon there's stuff to come.
in directing, I don't know if I asked you this or not, but you mentioned with writing, you wrote some drama stuff. Is there a particular passion in where you want to direct and what kind of stuff you want to direct?
Yeah, I love the short form commercial stuff for the reason that like I've done PSAs with organizations, so it's really great because there's a massive audience for that, and you can
Hmm.
do a lot of good through that channel. But the dream is, and what I write naturally are narrative forms. It's long form, ultimately a TV series. I mean, I say series, that sounds like very far to reach. I have very big goals, but yeah, I'm working on a feature right now, and I have some pilots in the work.
Are you
Yeah.
very protective of the stuff that you wrote, that to the point where you're like, I want to direct what I wrote because I only trust myself to share that vision that I put down on paper?
I think I can't imagine anyone else directing what wrote, only because I feel like as a writer, well, for me at least, it always is an extension of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I mean, even to the degree of giving it to actors to do the role, that's even like a little bit of but I know a lot of amazing actors who could bring it to a level that I never imagined.
Yeah.
But I'll never say never. I mean, I think if it went TV series route, you would have multiple directors. You'd probably just do the pilot and then you let other people take over. But never say never. I don't make final statements, but I hope to direct all the things I write.
How would you feel about directing something that you're in? It's been done. It's been done a lot, where directors act in the stuff they direct.
I the way that I direct is so intense in a technical way that it's very designed. So I think I tried once on a short thing to act in something that I was directing, but I also did it was just me and the DP that we were
Mm-hmm.
shooting. And that was very stressful. I was just like, I can't watch myself and perform and what. So I never say never, but ideally, I mean, I'd like to give it to someone else because honestly, I always say like, if you have one great or good mind, you're always better having more great minds. It's like one as
Exactly.
opposed to four or five. You know what I mean? Like there's so
Absolutely.
many talented people out there, and yeah, I could never, do it all justice at the same. I mean,
No, I mean, at the end of the day, to get something creative work, movies, TV show, anything, stage
yeah,
play, it's a team effort. It's a team
always,
effort. It's always a team effort.
yeah.
Samantha, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much
joining
for
us.
having me.
No, it's been our pleasure. Our audience just loves you, and we are so excited to see you in Terrifier 2. And see, I have my own thoughts on how Damien might take your character. I gotta wait to see it to find out.
Oh yeah, I feel like every year
Absolutely,
is right.
absolutely. Thank you again. Thank you to all our audience. Thank you for Damien for tuning in. Stay safe on behalf of Samantha. Well, before we go, do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
Oh no, I'm just thank you for having me, and thanks to the fans and the support base. Like I think we say this a lot, but like it wouldn't be possible. The
Yeah,
second film wouldn't have been possible, and our efforts would not be in vain, but it really is
it's
magical that it's been received the way that it has.
are you appearing in any cons anytime soon?
I am scheduled, I think, with the whole cast in Jersey on the end of October.
You talking
I think it's
about Horror Fest? No, not.
I think it's New Jersey Horror Fest.
That's in
Yeah.
November, early November. Okay, I didn't know because that
There
was
is
the one
something at the
that
end of the month. Damien, are you on still, or did you leave?
because that was the one that Damien and the whole crew were there earlier this month.
There is one end of October. I'm just blanking on
Okay,
the.
all right. I think it's another
There is,
one.
and I think the whole cast is together for the first time.
All right, cool, cool. Might have to come check you out and meet you in person. Missed you earlier this month.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much to Samantha. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Until next time, on behalf of Samantha and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night, everybody.